EDC, or Everyday Carry. That's the name of this new series. This is episode 1, and this is brought on by a couple of ideas I've had, but the true inspiration didn't show up until Massdrop sent me their EDC series, and I just loved the name, and I thought it was the perfect name to start a portable series. And it's basically anything that you can fit in your pocket or in the small front pocket of a backpack. I'll use that at my discretion to determine what fits and what doesn't. Large planars are, of course, off the table, large amplifiers off the table. Even though they might physically fit, they're not really what I would consider to be portable. So what qualifies as portable? Well, one, I think it has to be under $500. Digital audio players are on the table, small headphones like these, anything foldable, or anything that would be considered in the portable realm of headphones or audio gear counts and will go in this series. Now, this series will be judged on a number system, and I will give 1 out of 10 for each individual category. Categories I'll talk about in a second, and then at the end I'll aggregate those all to a final score. Ducks, man. So the 5 categories are portability, comfort, durability, discretion, which is a big one, and then sound. And again, I will judge all those on a 1 to 10 score and then aggregate all of those together on a 1 to 10 score for the entire headphone, digital audio player, whatever it happens to be. If you have a name for the EDC series that you think would fit better, I'd love to hear it in the comment section down below so I can steal it. Make sure it's original and that nobody else on YouTube has that series name. Alright, so Massdrop sent me in the Massdrop New Force EDC 1 and 3, and these are perfectly similar headphones in every category except for sound. They come with the same accessories, same carrying case, they have the same build, minus a little bit of paint change on the EDC 1 versus the EDC 3. And other than that, the only differences are sound. So I'm going to judge every category except for sound exactly the same with these. Alright guys, because I'm cold, I'm going to hop back inside and let's get started. Alright, so for the first category, portability. This is first and foremost when it comes to an everyday carry. You want to have it basically portable. Now, IEM such as the EDC3 here are going to probably in this category score the highest compared to maybe some foldable headphones or some small headphones or even some digital audio players, simply because they're malleable, they're foldable, they can fit anywhere, including your pocket, and they don't take up that much space. And you know, when you're talking about a digital audio player with the screen, you got to be really careful about where you place your keys because you don't want to scratch up the screen and all that stuff. So generally speaking, IEMs like this are really going to score really well here. So these I'm going to give a 10 out of 10 for portability. They're completely malleable. They have a nice foldable cable that's easy to fold. Now, one factor that might be a detriment to other headphones that have this over-ear hook is that if the hook itself is not very malleable, I will count that against it, maybe knock off a point or two depending on how bad it is. But other than that, these are completely foldable. They do come with a small carrying case that will fit inside your pocket or your backpack, and you shouldn't have any problems there. So for portability, it's going to be a 10 out of 10. Now for durability, I'm going to list these as completely average. They're a plastic build. They do feel solid. They don't creak or crack when I kind of squeeze on them or anything like that. The cable is decent enough. I don't think it'd rip or tear or fray. And another benefit to this is that the cables are replaceable, and it does come with an extra pair of cables in the carrying case. So that is to its benefit. There is one possible flaw and something that I've had experience with personally on a different pair of headphones that had a similar build, being the Shure SC215s. Now, if you take the ear tips off, this kind of nozzle that you put the ear tip on is very thin. And since this is a plastic build, that thin nozzle and having it angled out like that, if you sat on these in the wrong way or you crushed them with too much weight, I have had nozzles of similar build break in the past. Thankfully, that hasn't been an issue with this, but the size of that nozzle is not very structurally sound in my experience. So that is going to count to its detriment. Now, this isn't extremely strong or thick plastic, and it's definitely not metal. So I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10 for durability. I think they'd last a long time. The replaceable cable is nice, but I also don't think that you could sit on these without any repercussions. Okay, now comfort. Now comfort is going to go person to person, and I only had a couple people to test this on, being me and my girlfriend, and she didn't have any issues with these. They felt comfortable in her ears, they felt comfortable in mine. One big benefit and what was a detriment to the build quality and the durability of it is that small ear nozzle. Now, the benefit of having that small nozzle here is that when you have a small nozzle like this, it's going to fit in a lot of people's ear canals because the actual inside of the tips here, the more firmer part, is actually going to have a smaller circumference than maybe a bigger ear nozzle. I'm not even sure if nozzle is the right word, but that's the word we're going with. And the cables don't seem to annoy me at all. And then a small thing that I wouldn't actually dock a point off of, but it is worth mentioning, is that it does come with a 90-degree 3.5 millimeter. Now the benefit to this, in my opinion, is that when you have your phone and you plug it into your phone, if you put this in your pocket, it seems to fit a little bit better when you're actually kind of sitting down, because if you have that wire sticking straight out, when you do sit down, you're kind of, you're bending your body like this, and it might put a little bit more pressure on that little 3.5 millimeter. Now it's not a huge deal, and I wouldn't dock any points if it didn't have that, but I'm also not going to give it any points for having it. It's just kind of a nicer feature that I wish more portable headphones would use. So for comfort and ease of use, it's a good solid 8 out of 10. Now category number 4 is actually going to be discretion, and I think this is a big thing when it comes to an everyday carry. And the big reason why is because when you have some flashy pair of headphones, the likelihood of that being stolen goes up drastically. If you're wearing a pair of Beats, that's a really commonly known brand. Usually they're kind of brighter colors, so they're going to attract a lot of attention. And in my opinion, unless you're seeking attention, you kind of want to avoid attention, because the more eyes you have on your devices, the higher your likelihood of them getting stolen, and of course we want to avoid that. So the body itself is actually like a really dark blue, but it kind of comes across as black, and then you have kind of a black cable. And then the carry case itself is actually black as well. So black on black on black, that's super convenient, really discreet, and not too many people are going to notice. There is one thing I am going to take away from all headphones of this type, as long as I remember to do it, which is the around ear design. Now when you have this kind of plugged into your ear, this may look relatively normal to you because you're an audience who cares about audio, but the mass market, the mass majority of people really don't see headphones like this a lot. So they do attract a little bit more attention because they're not just kind of straight hanging out of your ear like an average pair of any of your headphones. And by average, I don't mean average within the audio community, I mean average within civilization. So you are going to attract a little bit more attention just by having something that looks somewhat out of the norm. It's not completely unnatural to most people, and they'll kind of see and understand what it is, but they might do a double take and look at you. So for discretion, that is going to knock a point off, and I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. And if you're wondering what categories might knock this down or bring this back up, I'm considering color, size, and the kind of shape. So if you have something like one of the Odyssey in-ear planar headphones that are huge and they kind of have kind of neat colors on them, they look completely different than any other headset out there, that's going to attract a lot of attention, and when people see you wearing that, they're gonna notice. Now the 5th and final category for both of these headphones, these are where they start to be pretty starkly different. So the EDC One have a very warm, very bassy sound signature. Now this is really kind of like a fun headphone. It's not an analytical headphone. You got these kind of sucked out mid-range. You have very non-fatiguing but not very present high end. It's not at all sibilant, which is a bonus, but that's because there really isn't much above 10K here. There's no air to it at all. So what these headphones are going to be really good for is going to be kind of people who aren't really focused on being the most analytical of their sound. They just want something fun, maybe good for working out, good for rock music, good for electronic music. Anything with a heavy amount of bass that you really want to kind of feel like you're kicking ass to, this is going to be a great headphone. Now the counterpart to the EDC One is actually going to be the EDC 3. This kind of represents the polar opposite. This is a very analytical headphone. This does have a little bit reduction in the bass department compared to the EDC One, but it does bring up the top end. It still doesn't have much above 10K, but it's definitely more than the One. There is a little bit of air to it, but honestly the best part about the EDC 3 is going to be the vocal presentation, because it does bring up that mid-range quite a bit further than the EDC One. Now as a standalone headphone, I wouldn't really consider these to be mid-range centric, because they do seem to be fairly even across the bass, mid-range, and the treble department, at least for a $100 headphone. I mean, they're not the most straight across the board headphone on the planet. Of course they're not, but they do give you pretty even and solid performance, but they are leaned a little bit more towards the analytical side of things rather than the bassy fun side of things. So depending on what you want, it might be worth putting your money towards. Now, in my opinion, and how I'm gonna judge these is just based off of what I like, not necessarily what the mass market likes. So for the EDC1, I'm actually going to give it a score of 4 out of 10. It's a fun headphone, but I really listen to a lot of vocal music, and not having any vocals or any top in there is a little bit too disappointing for me to give this an above 5 score. Now on the other side, you have the EDC3, which I'm actually going to score a 6 out of 10. I do appreciate the slight reduction in the bass response, the more analytical feel. That's why it scores higher, and I am considering price in the factor. I think the EDC1 comes in at like $60 or $70, and the 3 here comes in at $100. And I feel like it has good enough performance to be passable, and definitely for everyday use, it's going to be a great performer. But in terms of the totality of sound, when you're kind of sitting back, focusing in in a quiet room where you're only focusing on the sound, I feel like it does fall a little bit short compared to some of the other competition that I even have here. That being said, the ease of use, the portability of it, it's actually going to score pretty good. So the total score for these, the EDC1 is going to score a 6.8 out of 10. And I promise this naming scheme will be way less confusing when I'm not talking about a headphone that's literally named after the series, or reverse that, the series is named after the headphone. And then the EDC3 here is going to score a full point higher at 7.8 out of 10. Now for an everyday carry, I highly recommend the 3 here over the 1. I think the addition of the mid-range, good vocals, decent tonality, it's okay in that category, and the little bit brighter top end is definitely worth the extra money, considering they have the same features regarding their actual build and usability and their discretion. All right guys, I think that's going to be it for episode 1 of EDC. I hope you like the series. If you want me to do more, definitely let me know. If you want to rename it, definitely let me know. And then if you think this is kind of a silly series, then definitely let me know. And depending on feedback, I will continue or maybe disband this or rename it or something like that. And I'd love to hear what you think of this in the comment section down below. All right guys, thanks very much. Oh, by the way, I want to do a quick plug. If you like and share this video, it really does actually help the channel quite a bit. It does really help the YouTube algorithm, as you guys know, and it really helps me out, and it doesn't take much time. So if you're willing to do that, I appreciate it. All right, thanks for listening to this not so shameless plug. There's a little shame involved. A little shame. All right guys, thanks very much. I'll catch you in the next video.